Quick PSA, the fastest way for many of you out there to get your hands on some of these Fox 3 missiles is going to be with planes you already have, like the F15C or the Mirage 2000. Use my link in the description down below to get 3% off on Golden Eagles you buy if you choose to purchase the modification. If not, happy grinding. Fox 3 missiles have finally hit the live server for War Thunder. I'd have never thought I'd be playing with this type of weaponry on this game, but here we are. I've played about 20 matches in this new update using nothing but F15s, the F15J and the F15C, in the Japanese and US tech trees respectively. I will talk a little bit about the planes themselves a little bit later in the video, but initially I just kind of want to do a first impressions. What do I think about the Fox 3 missiles this update? And not just that, some other core mechanics of the game have changed that I do want to talk about real quick. Firstly, being multipathing, flying low to the ground and being immune to radar missiles. On the dev server, this got changed to 50 meters from 100, so before you could fly 100 meters or lower from the ground and be safe from radar missiles. Well, the dev server, it was 50. Now that we have the actual update, they decided to bump it up to a quick little 60 before releasing it, and that is what we have now. Multipathing happens at 60 meters above the ground. Personally, I don't think that this is terrible for the game if it weren't for one thing. We still have 16 versus 16 lobbies. There is too much going on. It is way too chaotic. And now that we have active radar homing missiles flying around from every which direction, it only makes it that much worse, even from your own teammates. In the absolute chaos and furballs of top tier, it was nice to have a surefire way of avoiding missiles. As you can see, this AMRAAM went pretty damn low to the ground there and ended up fragging this Mirage 2000. By the way, shout out Odom, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being a great test subject on this new multipathing mechanic, and I'll show it a little bit from my point of view later in the video as well. So overall, from my experience, 60 meter multipath isn't the end of the world. It can definitely be usable still, a little bit annoying at times, but I think it is only further exaggerated by the fact we have 16 versus 16, and it really makes it frustrating to play. So to put my opinion in black and white for all of you guys, I don't mind 60 meter multipath if we had 8 versus 8 top tier. In the current 16 versus 16, I would much rather have like a 75 to 100 meter multipath like we had before, because I think it is simply just way too chaotic otherwise. I agree with most of you out there that I think 100 meters felt a little bit excessive at times. It was a little bit brain off, but again, I do think it was more valuable to have that consistency and surefire way of not getting caught up in the absolute chaos of a 16 versus 16 furball. With the current 60 meter, it can definitely still work. It is a lot more difficult, and I think that that can be a good thing. I think you should have to practice flying low to the ground. It adds a little bit of skill involved instead of just fly kind of low and turn your brain off and be immune to radar missiles. That wasn't exactly fun gameplay either, but again, I do think it is necessary for the time being. It also depends heavily on what kind of terrain you're flying over. Some of the trees in this game are literally like 40 meters tall, and that does not give you much room to try to do the 60 meter multipath thing. I think if trees were counted as the actual physical terrain that the missile had to think about, it would be much better and a lot more viable. Coming back around to the 16 versus 16 top tier issue, because I'm going to talk about this all the time. I know you guys are probably sick of it, but I just don't really have a choice. There's really no way around the issue here. Speaking of issues, I really don't think being able to shoot an HMDR-73 in that kind of situation is fair. I don't think that should even exist. But back to the point, the 16 lobbies is just random feeling. It always has felt pretty random as far as winning and losing, and it's only that much worse with active radar missiles. With the multipath change, if you want to be consistent with literally just not dying, then now I hate to admit it, but it finally probably is best to just stay at range and do BVR LARPing, where you're just shooting off your AMRAAMs from 20 plus kilometers and then just turning around and spamming chaff and bleeding missiles of their energy. A lot of people like this gameplay, and again, I wouldn't mind it so much if the team sizes were smaller, because then you could have a greater impact on the match while doing so. The problem with a strategy like this is that it is extremely unimpactful on the game. 50% of the time, the missile you fire probably isn't even going to hit the target when you're doing tactics like that, and then it's going to kind of leave you up to a dice roll whether or not your team start winning or losing the game. If they start winning the game, you're probably not going to be getting too many kills for the rest of the match, but if they start losing the game, sure, you have a lot of target opportunities, you have a lot of potential to get kills, but it doesn't matter. The game is already over and you're about to have 6 enemies spamming all of their missiles at you, and there's just going to be nothing you can do about it. So if you want to play the old way and stay low to the ground, you're rolling the dice on what kind of terrain you're going to be flying over at the exact moment the missile actually approaches your location. If you happen to fly over an unlucky ditch in the terrain or something like that, well, you're just going to die. And on the same coin, you're just rolling the dice on whether or not your team's going to win the match for you if you're going to play the BVR LARPing style of gameplay. Either way, you're rolling the dice and it feels extremely random, and I do not like that. Even if it means making the game less realistic, for example 100-meter multipathing, I would much rather have some actual skill to the gameplay and some consistency rather than just rolling the dice with no matter what you do at top tier. And I cannot emphasize this enough, I think that everybody could kind of meet in the middle and we'd all somewhat be happy with the gameplay if we had a lower multipath with an 8 versus 8 top tier. So that's my take on the Fox 3 missiles so far. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And now I want to spend the rest of the video talking about the new F15s that I haven't had too much time on, but all of the time I have had on this new server has been in the F15. Speaking of time on the server, I have enabled the 12 versus or 6 to 12 player match slider thing. Gives you the chance of getting a smaller match. Not a single one of my 20 games has been anything but 16 versus 16. So for all intents and purposes, that slider does nothing. Opting into that does nothing. It's still 16 versus 16. So the F15, it may not be finished, at least some things about it may not be finished, specifically on the F15J, which we're going to get to, but regardless of how you slice it, you're looking at probably one of, if not the best planes in top tier right now. Having the ability to carry 6 AMRAAMs and 2 9Ms with HMD, with a great radar, with great flight performance, with a lot of countermeasures, this plane is an absolute beast. And sure, the F16C is also a 13.0 US jet. Many of you probably already have the F16C, so you're wondering whether or not it's even worth it to grind this thing out. I say absolutely, because if you have the F15C, it pretty much makes playing the F16C obsolete, at least in ARB. If I'm playing ground, sure, I'm still going to take the F16 because of its cast ability, but other than that, I'm going to take the F15 all day. The AMRAAM does feel pretty nice. I don't know if it necessarily feels finished. It's kind of wobbly. All of the missiles in this game are wobbly though, so I really don't expect that to change very much. As far as loadouts go, I would still recommend probably the 6 and 2 loadout. 8, sure, maybe, as long as you're not just going to spam them off at the start of the match and then RTB, and actually conserve those 8 AMRAAMs, then sure, go for it, man. But 6 and 2 is probably what I would run. As far as the F15J, this thing is just straight up better than the American F15C, and that is completely expected. That's what the F15J pretty much is in real life. The AAM-3 missile, which is essentially an AIM-9M, is about 10% better in performance than the AIM-9M in basically every category because it has less drag, which means it's always going faster. The AAM-4 is not finished, it seems, because it is worse than the AIM-120, and if you know anything about it in real life, it should be better than the AIM-120A and B models, but right now in War Thunder, it's actually worse. So if you're playing the F-15J, just run the AMRAAMs. Other than that, I believe you're about 500 kilograms lighter than the American F-15C, so technically your flight model is a little bit better as well, and other than that, you're pretty much the exact same thing. So of course, that makes the F-15J just straight up an upgrade. That's been my initial thoughts on the Fox 3 missiles and the F-15. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.